Hello guys, my name is Kevin and welcome to this new video in which I'll talk about the best tier 6 tanks. Oh, the tier 6, a blaze of peace, a blaze of tanks that have never seen the light of day. And lastly, the homeland of goddamn shit fucking Chromies. Jesus, please let them burn in hell, as the sheer existence of theirs is a sin on its own. But now that I've said what probably had to be said, let's go to the list starting on at the M44. Okay, give me a second to process this shit. Really? And Artie, how fucking high was I when I made this list months ago? No, really. The fifth place is obviously gonna be occupied by something else, such as, for example, the Skoda T25. Alright, well yes, on tier 6 there are indeed quite a few tanks that could easily take its place. I chose the Skoda instead of them as I got a bit of a love affair with this thing. Just look at those nice curvy hips, nice long barrel, and this ugly as fuck turret. Why you do this to me? But now for real, this thing, despite its rather laughable appearance, is pretty damn powerful. A powerful magazine using weaponry on top of a big, fat and juicy engine hiding underneath the tank combined together make this tank a real dangerous predator. While its 110 alpha damage might seem horrible at first sight, a quick salvo of 3 will quickly prove you otherwise. This proves to be effective especially against newer players who haven't encountered many autoloaders yet. However, the surprisingly high 1915 DPM will quite commonly surprise even those more experienced. Sadly, it has a mediocre penetration of only 132, which forces you to bring more than a handful of premium shells. Next up, the previously mentioned strong engine is indeed capable of making this tank slice through the battlefield like nothing. However, everything comes at a price, and in this case it's the paper-like armor and the huge size, making you a rather attractive target for thick guns. As well, the long tracks obviously slow down your whole traverse speed, making it nearly impossible for this tank to be as agile as the rest of the pack. However, the overall feel of this tank is rather similar to that of Cromwell, except that it carries 3-round magazine instead of a regular gun. Second tank on this list is gonna be the Strv 74. When this tank has been introduced to this game back at the very end of 2016, it was instantly compared to the Cromwell, and for a very good reason. Well, despite it only being a bit less than a half of a year ago, before 2017 there weren't all that many mediums at tier 6 that had both good DPM and decent mobility. So when people got their hands at the new Strv, they quite commonly compared it to the Cromwell, because Cromwell was more or less the only ARC tank that had such capabilities. However, compared to the Cromwell, this tank has 15 degrees of gun depression. Yes, you heard right. 15 degrees of gun depression. 8 degrees is great, 10 is amazing, but 15 is freaking insane. Hello? No kidding, this thing is broken no matter what you say. However, it would be close to being useless if you had a bad gun, so yeah. This thing obviously has a decent gun as well. But again, for comparison, compared to the Cromwell, you got lower DPM and higher alpha and penetration. That means that you get more or less the same gun. However, compared to Cromwell, again, this tank is far less mobile, but way more accurate. You practically do not need to stand at one place like a sitting duck doing nothing to fire accurately. Instead of that, you can move around pretty much freely with only tiny pulses. By the way, this is another thing that is very useful for a tank that works with bridge lines. But now to the third tank on this list, which is gonna be the Cromwell. Really? I'm out. Seriously, what the fuck have I been thinking when I've been doing this list? Fucking loading unicorns or what? But yeah, you can't deny the fact that this tank is really overpowered and it rightfully deserves a place on this list. Firstly, it has an absolute murderous DPM of 2100 with alpha that can at least do something, unlike let's say the T34 on tier 5, which as well has brutal DPM, but the alpha just sucks. Here we got at least over 100 alpha, yay! 135 to be exact, and some decent penetration, which gets a pretty amazing boost if you load in the skill round so you can call yourself a quickie baby for 5 seconds. Yeah, the accuracy is kinda shit, why do you think I call it a chromie? But it makes up for it with its amazing mobility. This freaking thing is more of a light tank than a medium. It has 23 horsepower to ton ratio. That is way higher than the average of mediums at all tiers, but we are at tier 6. So your speed advantage compared to the other mediums is even larger, as here we got some mediums that move probably as fast as heavies. In fact, as fast as the Chromie is at the moment, it doesn't need any armor. You'll just dodge everything. Well, just as I said it, I realized one thing. Yes, Chromie indeed has no armor whatsoever. However, unlike the light tanks, you get armor that is still thick enough to side scrape or survive through high explosive spam. And to top it all off, with a tiny bit of angling, half of your frontal plate becomes a bouncy castle with over 70 degrees of angling. So yeah, auto ricochet angle, which makes every single shell that has a lower caliber than 75, so even the Cromwell itself auto ricochet. Oh, and I forgot to mention, there's as well the Cromwell B variant, which would normally get this spot, but it's more or less the same thing. A bit faster, but that's about it. So I don't think that it would be in any way interesting to have two tanks that are literally the same exact thing on one list. So yeah, I just chose the one that is a bit easier to get. Well, a lot easier to get. You as well do not need to feel sad that somebody with the Cromwell B is gonna be more powerful than you are with the regular Cromwell, because both their firepower and survivability are the same. Well, I'd rather call that recyclation of paper than survivability, but, well, however you wanna call it, it's gonna be equal. The fourth tank on this list is gonna be the Type 64 Ching Chong motherfucker, and yeah, you heard right, I think that there are some tanks more powerful than the Cromwell at tier 6. You're free to kill me. But now to the Type 64. This tank, on a scale of annoyingness, is at least for me at the same level as the fucking E25. It just hides in one single bush all game long, passively spawning, and when you finally find that little bugger, it just runs the fuck away. And you know that once it starts running, there is no point in chasing it because I am free. Just like the Scuttle Crab from League of Legends, it ain't doing jack shit for the entire game. Just passively spawning, as I've said, in the middle of a freaking river. But when it seems a bit too suspicious to you that you are spotted all time long and decide to randomly start shooting bushes around you, you will see that little shit running away like nope. And the worst part, once it runs away, it doesn't go back until there is a chance to steal the fruits of your work. You know, just last thing, carry on. But now really, this tank has a DPM of a freaking Cromwell. It's a light tank. Light tanks are fast, agile, and mainly stealthy. They do not possess a gun that is capable of putting out some reasonable damage. In fact, to furthermore discourage players from dealing damage as light tanks, Wargaming replaced their ammunition with cum-filled cum-dumps that are thrown at the enemies by the tank crew in order to make their tracks sticky and thus slowing or even immobilizing the enemy tanks. Fun fact, the sound effect of Zack's squashes, Zack is a champion from League of Legends, was made from a dog food and beans inside a condom slapped against the wall. Alright, I knew that League was kind of a weird game with even weirder people playing it, but this is a bit overboard, don't you think? Anyways, back to the War of Tanks. Anyways, back to the Type 64. Despite having to stick to the good old wet condoms, the Type 64 is at least capable of rapid firing them, increasing their effectivity. But apart from its amazing DPM, this tank has amazing mobility that is even better than Cromwell's. And lastly, the armor sucks. Still though, who gives a damn about that if you dodge every single shot some crybaby T-150 shoots at you? All in all, this thing has only one single problem, and that is its terribly low potential damage in battle, with the capability of dealing only a tiny bit above 5,000 damage per game. In fact, even the guy that you see right now playing in the background ran out of ammunition and had to ram himself to death. But anyways, now to the number one on my list, which is gonna be the recently buffed T-3485M. Yes, T-3485M, because this thing has it all. DPM that is exactly the same as the Cromwell's, one less penetration in the Cromwell, and 180 alpha damage. So now you can even trade shots with some of the heavies without having to lose all that much HPs, and at the same time you don't really need to be afraid of some random Type 64 out DPMing you. But that's not where it ends. It as well has remarkably high mobility, which is actually not all that amazing compared to the rest of the tanks on this list, but still it is better than a lot of other tanks. And lastly, the armor. The threat armor is kinda similar to the super pushing because you get like 50% chance that the shot won't go through your armor and it doesn't matter what's the ammunition type. But at the same time you get like 50% chance that it will go through no matter how low the penetration might be. So shooting at this turret is more or less about luck and not about how well you can aim. However, the whole armor is thick enough to be compared to heavy tanks. Yeah, 90 armor at the front doesn't sound like much, but it is already pre-angled, so without you having to angle it in any way, it already has 120mm of effective armor. This is enough to block more or less every third shot. That's actually again not all that much, but angling will double this chance and you will bounce most of the shots. Pretty nice, don't you think? Well, mind if I'll add a bit salt to the injury by telling you that this tank doesn't even feel all that clunky? Yes, you're right, it's a Russian tank that is pretty accurate, at least compared to the standards, and it does have 7 degrees of gun depression instead of freaking 5. And lastly, to top it all off, you don't need to worry about ever running out of ammo, as you got over 10,000 potential damage. Long story short, if you can think of something that might be good on a tank, this tank has it. Well, it doesn't have a fucking skin, so it's freaking useless tank. Anyway, this is gonna be the end of this video. Note that these tanks are neither my favorite tanks nor the most statistically powerful tanks, but rather than that a combination of these two more on the side of statistical correctness. I had to do it this way because if it was only my way, this list would have been full of paper armor TDs and super top armor TDs or TDs. On the other hand, if I had to be fully statistically correct, you would see a lot of meme tanks such as the Tok 2, which thanks to its high amounts of hit points and slow speed is capable of having high win rate and those monstrous games with a lot of WNA, or NT25, which I probably do not need to explain why it is pretty good. So please respect the fact that I simply have to limit the amount of tanks on this list and to choose the quote-unquote middle way. Anyways, hope you enjoyed and I hope that I'll see you next time. Bye!